Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Learn with Jason. Today on the show, we're going to be diving into some of the brand new features of CSS and how we can use them today, even though they haven't quite hit baseline yet. So this is really exciting. This is a super practical episode if you work on layouts and UIs. So make sure you stay tuned. And again, if you enjoy this show, make sure to like it, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, all those good things. Thanks for being here. So let's go ahead and welcome in our guest for today. It is James Stuckey Weber. James, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Jason. Yeah.
I'm so happy to get a chance to meet you. I've been familiar with your team,
Mhm.
but you and I haven't had a chance to meet before. So for folks who aren't familiar, do you want to give us a bit of a background on yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm a front-end developer. It's been doing web stuff since, I was in high school back in the 90s. So discovering different HTML elements by typing it into a text editor, that kind of thing. And over the years, done nonprofit websites. I did a analytics platform. And now at Oddbird, I do a little bit of everything. Some client work with, making websites for cabinet manufacturers or steel mills or things like that, or whoever
Okay.
needs it. But then also doing CSS spec work is part of what we do, and work. I've been contributing to SAS, the Web Features project, and yeah, now the anchor position polyfill, which has been a really fun thing to dive into and just experiment with.
Yeah, and polyfill work is kind of a special beast because it's one of the last places where you get that sort of jQuery style development where you're actually digging into the inconsistencies between browsers and are you doing things like sniffing browser agents and some of those things that you used to do back in the day?
We don't have to do too much of that. Our polyfill mostly is just checking, is anchor, I think we're doing anchor name, is that something that the browser supports? And if not,
Yeah.
we're running the polyfill. But yeah, it's actually, I think we even put that onto the user and say you can come up with your own. If you need more specific granularity or something in your case, you can do that. But we give the code to run on that. Yeah.
Nice. Very, very cool. So let's talk a little bit about just the context for what this is and why anybody would care. So CSS anchor positioning, as I understand it, is the ability to change where something sits relative to an item.
Yeah.
And so historically, I'm just gonna kind of run through my understanding of positioning in CSS
Mhm.
and see where the disconnect is and why we needed this feature. Historically, if I needed to position something near an element, I would end up with a div, and then inside of that div, maybe I've got a button or a span or something that I want to kind of like be near it, and I would end up needing to set the div to position relative,
Mhm.
and then the contained element to say position absolute.
Mhm.
And then I'm sort of just doing math to figure out like, all right, well, I want it to go like 10 pixels above this element, but then I have to do the math for how tall the thing is. And then I have to, account for that. And then I would find myself trying to do something really complicated, like what if it's at the top of the page versus the bottom of the page? Or what if somebody has kind of scrolled it part of the way off the page? Do I need to care about that? Or,
Mhm.
what happens? And inevitably, my way of dealing with that has been to talk myself out of building it that way and instead put it somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
So and this is a really common thing for something like tooltips, is where I always feel the most pain with this, because a tooltip, you want it to be visible, but like if the button is at the top of the page, it should be, maybe it opens to the bottom. If it's at the bottom of the page, it needs to open to the top. And I have written that JavaScript to detect all of that, and it ends up being surprisingly complex.
Yeah.
So is this going to save me from having to do all of that work?
I hope so. Yes. I think you're absolutely right. I think the that simple case of throwing a absolute positioned element inside of a relative parent, that works sometimes. In many cases, that's what you need. But what if you can't put your content inside of that parent? What if it's somewhere else completely? What if it's like, a dialogue element, or what are there's lots of different scenarios where that comes up. And then, yeah, you're right. There's all of these other edge cases where it doesn't quite work. The edges of the screen are a huge part of that. And yeah, it's I think uh, you would going back in how I would do this for drop downs or things like that. It was often bringing in Popper.js, or now floating UI. Those are some of the JavaScript libraries that handle a lot of this more commonly. But yeah, I definitely have been. I mean, within the last couple weeks, I was with the client and we couldn't use the CSS anchor positioning yet. And I had to say, we can't do a drop down here. Or actually, I think it was a popover. We can't do this. It was just, it was a little bit of, but this is such a common pattern on the internet. It should be so easy, and we couldn't. So it is allowing you. Well, I think one of the huge benefits is it's moving it out of that JavaScript realm where you're having to do math, where or where some library is having to do heavy math for you, into CSS, where you're kind of more declaratively saying, this is what I want, just describing what you want to have happen, and the browser takes care of it for you. And so it's more performant. It's easier to use. You don't have to find a library. You don't have to think about math.
Right.
You can if you want. Yeah. So.
Well, and it kind of seems like, even more importantly, it doesn't split across two languages and two files, where I historically, if I wanted to do this, I would have some CSS that controlled parts of the tooltip, and then there would be JavaScript that controlled other parts of the tooltip. And even with just a few weeks between writing that and having to maintain it, you kind of have to rebuild your entire mental context of how that was constructed, which is a huge problem. Like, I have code from years ago that does stuff like this. Like, I had markdown with footnotes, and I wanted to pull the footnotes up, and so I was doing this complicated math to figure out where to put them so that they were readable, and they were multi-line, and there's all this stuff I had to do to make it work. I can't figure out how I did what I did, and I don't have time to really, like, line by line break it down again. So I've just sort of left it alone, thinking someday I'll fix this. And that I find myself, whenever I have to do some kind of complicated workaround, I get resistant to ever updating that feature. And so a thing that I'm really excited about with CSS anchor positioning, and with a lot of the features that have been landing in CSS lately, is that it starts to eliminate the sprawl of the code required to implement features, so that you get to keep a simple context, and things are done in a way that is very predictable, and it's in the docs, and you can go, if you don't remember how you did it, you can just go read the the Mozilla page that says this is how this works, and then you're kind of back on track. So this is something that's been in the works now. I feel like I started hearing rumblings of this, maybe, was it a year ago? So it's probably been in the works far longer than that.
Yeah, so I think got released in Chrome or Chromium browsers in May of last year, was when it hit prime time. But I think this is something that's, I mean, the spec, of course, has been worked on much longer than that, and it's kind of been a dream in many ways, as long as there have been these JavaScript implementations of this as a common practice. So, but yeah, it's been in Chromium. There's been some changes over the last year or so, in the naming conventions, things like that. But yeah, and the exciting thing is it's part of Interop 2025, which means that Firefox and Safari are saying, yes, this is important. We want to work on this year. And so by the end of the year, hopefully this will be in Safari and Firefox for new browsers. So there's still that, the 2.5, 3 year wait before you can assume that everyone has it. But that's exciting. That's coming soon.
That is exciting. And I want to pause here, because I think there's a really useful soundbite that I want to get, which is, what, like, I hear the name Interop 2025,
Yeah.
but I've never actually asked what that is. So what is Interop 2025?
Yeah. So I'm only tangentially involved, so I'll do my best to describe it. But Interop 2025, it's a process that all the browsers or the major browsers get together, and every year they request input from the community and say, what should we focus on this next year? And then they come together and they say, these are the things that we're going to make sure we focus on. That maybe it's something like anchor positioning, where only one browser has it so far, and we want to get it in everything else. Sometimes I think another uh, part is some investigation on like how do we test. I think it was gamepad or how gamepads interact with the web, and
Mm,
so they don't really have a way of testing that yet, but they want to have some standards around that. But what it boils down to in the end is there's a set of tests called the web platform tests, which are, I don't know how many, it's hundreds of thousands of little unit tests. Like,
yeah.
does this specific property work in this specific way? Can you parse, we'll get to this later, but position area top left or left top, do those both work the same? Um, and and so there's all these tests, and so the browsers commit to these tests here. We are going to try to make them pass by the end of the year, and if we do that, then this larger feature, people can use it. So
Got it.
yeah.
That makes it really tangible because I understand the idea of these sort of cross-functional, cross-organizational, cross-company efforts,
Mhm.
where we all say, it's easy to say we're going to do this thing, but how you do that thing is very
Yeah.
there's the devil's in the details, so to
Yeah.
speak. And I know historically we would get pretty different implementations of the same ideas across browsers, and
Mhm.
so you had to sort of account for that behavior, that like this one was going to do it this way, but this one was going to do it this way, and you just kind of have to know, or get a browser hack or something like that. So knowing that the way that Interop is working is to build out a suite of tests, and the browsers are committing to all of the browsers are going to run the same test suite to determine whether or not they've got that interop. That's really cool, and
Yeah.
a very, like, I'm really happy to hear that that's sort of the path that everybody took forward. That's super neat.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just pulled up the list of the other focus areas for 2025, and there's a lot of good things there. Core Web Vitals, the details element, navigation API, the view transition API,
Mm,
WebAssembly, writing modes. All these things are, they're, I think what those things are specifically. You can drill down more on those, but it's a really fascinating list of like, here's what. Not just one browser, but what the web community as a whole has said this is important to do.
yeah, yeah, very very cool stuff. I'm super happy to hear about it. So let's see. We're about 13 minutes in here, and I feel like all of my questions about CSS anchor positioning are going to be easier to show than tell.
Yeah.
So why don't I take us over to our view here? And I have lost your
We'll actually start
that's
with a
super weird.
blank code pen if that's okay.
Yeah, let me do a little bit of housekeeping stuff here.
Sure.
So first and foremost, let me throw a link out to your website.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Work in
so that's
progress.
a are people going to be able to find your social stuff here? Do you want me to throw that up specifically?
I think I just pushed that up not too long ago, but yeah, that you can find it there, or I'm on Blue Sky or Mastodon. I think yeah, at the bottom
Oh
there's
yeah, here we go.
yep.
Good, good. And then you are over at Oddbird. You want to
Yeah.
talk about that for a quick second?
Sure. Oddbird is a collective of people who work together on making web apps, design systems. We work with everything from, working on how specs or on, this writing CSS specs. My coworker Miriam Suzanne is on the CSS working group. So some of my exciting work is to help her dive in on a subject, something like that she's taking back to the CSS working group. We also do client work. Definitely, if you're interested in building a web app or something on the web platform, or needing any designs or design systems, we're great at that and very eager to help you. So come to our site.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. All right, so we're talking about CSS anchor positioning. This is a link to the docs on MDN. And you said, let's start with a blank code pen.
Yeah.
Always love an opportunity. Apparently I got logged out of code pen. Let's do one of these and just get logged in here. Perhaps, there we go. And let's start a new one. All right, blank code pen, here we go.
Great. So the first thing is, let's just start with the very, very basic 3 lines of CSS is all you're going to need. So we're actually going to do this with the Popover API, which is newer. It's, I think, a little bit older than anchor positioning, but it is baseline, newly available, so across all browsers. So if you add a button element with type button, and then add a popover target.
And it's all lowercase like that, right?
Yep, that's right.
Okay.
Rules, and then popover, or whatever ID we're going to give our popover.
Okay.
And then just call it button or whatever text you want to put in there.
We'll make it descriptive. Open the popover.
Great. And then let's make our popover just a div.
It's just a. Oh, that's right. It's not like an element anymore. It's was it ever? And I made that up.
It's the dialogue. Dialogue is.
I was thinking of dialogue. That's what it was.
It does have a popover attribute though. So
it has a popover attribute. So and that's just a Boolean attribute, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
And then you can put content in there. Or, this is the popover. Perfect. And this is currently you can click open popover. And it opens the popover. No anchor positioning yet, but you might want to position it, right?
Yes. And can we just call out how freaking cool it is that there's no CSS or JavaScript required for this to just work? We designed a popover. You click the button, the popover shows up, and it shows up centered in the middle of the screen, just like you would expect by default a popover or alert dialogue or anything like that. This is what you kind of want as a default behavior, which is extremely cool. Yes. Okay, so now that we've done that, we've got our button, we've got our popover. They're doing the things that we expect them to do. What next?
Okay, so the first thing is we'll remove a little bit of the popover style sheet, just the base style sheets that's there. So if you add a ID popover selector there, and just do margin initial, this will remove
gotcha.
where just the spacing, put where it goes. And then we're going to just add a position dash area.
Position area.
Yeah. And let's do end. And that's it. We're done. We learned CSS anchor positioning.
That's amazing. Okay, and so then if I, just to like really drive this point home, if I take my button and I say we're gonna make this, actually it'd probably be easier if I did it with the body, right? I can just do a display flex and then what's it, place items center. Or is it place content?
I think place items. You'll need a height on your body. So
oh, that's right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So
that should.
Do I have to do both? Is it like?
I think it's. Oh, yeah.
What? There is shorthand for this,
There is a
right?
shorthand. Yeah, I'm blanking on it right now, but
It's fine. It's fine. This
yeah,
is not what we're here to learn today.
yeah. Um, but no, this in my demos, I do this all the time, and I'm blanking on it. But yeah, so now if you change the position area to start, um, it'll jump over there, and
Amazing.
we'll get more into position area in a little bit. But I think if you move the uh, popover button back up into the corner, so just take that out for now. We ran into that overflow issue for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So then what we can do is you can add position try fallbacks, position dash try dash fallbacks, and do end. And now we're saying try to go start, but if it doesn't work, if it overflows, put it at the end. And so, yep,
Oh my
if
God,
you,
the amount of code that I've written to do just this is unbelievable.
yep,
That's right.
and it's
Yep,
done.
yep. Block sized B instead of H because
Yeah.
that's the right call. Up font size a tad, you got it. Let me oops, not on this one though. Let's do it on this one.
Yeah.
How's
Yeah.
that, y'all?
And then if you move your button down, it's we're moving back up. And so no matter it's fairly common where you have a drop down button. Maybe there's 4 up in the corner or something like that. You don't know where it's scrolled at on the page. You don't know how that is working. Or where exactly that's going to be on the page. So this provides you with just a really easy way of placing your content around something, anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that works because Popover has an implicit anchor. It just adds by default, it assumes you're probably going to want to position that popover close to whatever triggered it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's not always the case. If we just we can clear this out, I think, and just make 2 divs. We can 2 divs, 1 anchor, and give that ID anchor. Call that the anchor.
Okay.
Just put some content in there. And then another div, I call it positioned. Yeah. And then give it some content. So now they're both, I think the body is putting that in line.
Here, I can get rid of it.
Yeah. So the first thing we need to do on our anchor is on our anchor element, we have to say this is an anchor, and we do that by naming it. So you use anchor name, anchor dash name, and then it's a dash dash ident, so dash dash anchor. So similar to a CSS variable or something like that. This is just it's a CSS variable name essentially. That's just make sure that it's separated from CSS actual values.
This is also helpful because this is something that gets me about grid is that there are a couple places where you just sort of have magic words in grid because you define an area, but then you reference it without quotes. And I'm like, wait, isn't that it? And yeah, so I dig this because it makes it very clear that I'm defining what this is.
Yeah. And then, I agree. And then we need to refer to it. So on the positioned element, First, we need to say this is position absolute. So that's one thing to note with anchor positioning. It's for absolute or fixed positioned elements, things that have been. It's for floating content, things that are kind of removed from the flow of your page, not not normal content, I guess.
Yeah, because how would that work? Like,
yeah. So that's the first thing, and then we'll refer to it now with position dash anchor. And here's where we refer back to that dash dash anchor. And now those are connected, but now we need to actually just position that. So position area end. And now because the anchor is a div and it's taking up the full width, if you change the anchor to display inline, it won't take up the width of the page. Yeah. And so then, yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. So this is how you take two elements and just kind of make sure that they see each other and they talk to each other. And they don't have to be next to each other. They can be in completely different parts of your DOM. There are some rules about how that works or how they have to relate, just to prevent cycles. And the anchor has to be laid out before your positioned element, so that you're not trying to.
Like I can't throw this up above it.
You can. You can. You currently can't put your positioned element inside of the anchor if the anchor is relative, because it's and this is actually likely going to be a caveat that goes away. But yeah, because it creates a containing block for the positioned element. Currently, the spec is written that you can't refer to that. It gets deep. I think I don't know that we'll want to get too far into troubleshooting how all those things have to work, because if you're interested in that, there's an article on oddbird.net about troubleshooting anchor positioning that goes into some of those rules about exactly how all of those have to work. In general, what I've found is if they are siblings of each other and the anchor is first, it works most of the time. There are some, if the anchor is absolute positioned and the positioned element is absolute positioned, it has to go, or the anchor has to go first. So it's those these lots of if cases that make it messy.
Right, but in like I do just the lorem, it does work. Oh man, I love CodePen. So if we do something like this, you can also see that it's flowing as we would expect, which is good. Does that? Let's see. What are my? I'm just gonna throw some borders on things, just to see. This is how I think about CSS. I just have to kind of like make everything.
Yes.
Make everything have a border so that I can see what's going on with it. So is the popover or the anchor in this point, is it pushing down, or is this coincidentally the margin of the paragraph?
I think I would expect it to be the margin of the paragraph. Yeah.
It is. Okay. Yeah. All right. So that was just a perfect coincidence that it was exactly the right height to look like it was pushing down. Yeah. But so then this is pushing over. So if we were doing this for real, we'd probably have a background on this and, whatever color that is. But then we've got our popover kind of living over the space, which is really, really cool.
Yeah.
And if we wanted to make this work, sorry, you had a lot to show, because now I'm just kind of like, oh, but what if we tried it like this? Yeah. But things like if we hover over this, we could make that work all in CSS.
Yeah.
Yeah, just super cool stuff. Yeah. So what I want to make sure that we've got enough time to cover some of the other
Yeah.
ideas that you have. So I will not rabbit hole, and I'll follow your lead. So what would you like to do next?
Yeah, so I think here so far we've been using position area, which is what you'll probably want to be using most of the time. It's very helpful. But you can also use anchor functions, is what they're called. So if you remove position area end there, you can use the anchor function to, for instance, if we we want to place the top of the positioned element at the bottom of the anchor. So here you can do top, or you could use logical properties as well, but top and then anchor, uh, anchor function, and then bottom. And that'll position that right there. And you can also do bottom, or you could then left anchor right is probably what you'd want to do essentially the same thing as that position area. And this is
Right.
cool because now this resolves to a CSS length. Just it's a number under the hood.
Right.
Um,
And now we can do some math on it or whatever.
uh, you
Oh,
can,
you
but
cannot.
you need to wrap it in a calc. So
Got it. Okay, so
yeah,
this isn't one of the ones that like auto calcs.
yeah. So it would be actually, or the calc would be outside of anchor. Um, yeah.
Mm.
So anchor bottom, and then yep, like that. And then that'll
Cool. Yeah,
let
there we go.
you position it relative to the bottom of that other anchor. Um, yeah.
Got it. So
Yep.
yeah, so now we have control like I was talking about before. If I wanted to put it just like a little bit above the containing element, I can do that now with math instead of
Yep.
magic numbers like, well, I know when the font is this size and then the line height I got to do like it's roughly 2M or something like
Yeah.
that. And then it's, if you ever change your font size, it might break. It might, this is okay. We know the bottom of the anchor or the bottom of the positioned element is exactly 10 pixels above this particular thing,
Yeah.
which is like fabulous
Yeah.
for when you've got strict layout requirements and things.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can also so this is the anchor function, which gets a side or an edge of the anchor. You can also do
Hmm.
anchor size. So let's set
Oh, okay.
the um, uh, so you not with a top or not with a inset, but rather with a width or height, or block or inline size. You can do so. Um, let's do width. This is going, and then let's do a calc as well. Anchor dash size, uh, and then I'm trying to remember. I'm blanking on the syntax here. I think you can do width there. Is that right? Try width and then times two. Um, so then yeah. So then you are now getting the width of the anchor
So
element.
we're able to use the width of this element, so the
Yeah.
dynamic width of this element to then set the width of this
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah. And they again, you don't have to rely on it being on the DOM being a certain way. You can really connect, refer to pretty much any element on your page and size based on that. So that's another great trick.
Now, does this will this work if I didn't set any of these and I just want this to kind of flow, but I want it to have the same width or the same height? Can I
It still needs to be absolute. So
Oh,
you're
so
still
it
pulling
wouldn't
it out
quite
the
do what I
flow.
want.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the things. There's a couple places where I've found what I want is to be able to say I need everything here to be the same height, but it's all
Hmm.
height auto. And so
Yeah.
you're trying to pull like the tallest element to get it to work.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember the specific example, but I hit this somewhat recently, and I think the answer was you can't. Like
Yeah.
it's not currently solvable in CSS.
Yeah.
But this is really, really cool because it gives us so much control
Hmm.
in a way that's relative to the other elements on the page, which a lot of times is very easy, and in certain cases is just impossible. So to see that this is coming in, that we've got some functions that can get the dynamic width or height or whatever of
Hmm.
or positions of these other elements on the page is like I'm already kind of buzzing on some ideas for different ways we could use this and
Yeah.
what it makes possible. This is really cool.
No, it's felt like not a superpower, but just kind of like a super tool in my hand or my toolbox where people will share like something. Oh, I did this fun thing in CSS, um, uh, and I'm like, oh, I can do this with anchor positioning. And there's 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 a lot of yeah, a lot of new things that you can really unlock with anchor positioning. Um,
Hmm.
that's really cool. Yeah. I'm excited
Yeah,
to see what you noodle on and get out.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah,
So I know you had a couple other
yeah,
ideas that were kind of getting away from this sort of
sure.
tooltip
Yeah,
idea.
yeah.
Um,
First, before we do that, I think position area. I'll just jump back on that a little bit. There is a website anchor-tool.com um, that Una Kravitz has put out. This is super useful for visualizing how a position area works. And if you click on the items on that left side there, you can see top span left. So that
mm,
you're saying I want it at the top. I want it to span two columns or span all, and you can um, it'll just work. And you don't even need that span all. You can just do top.
hmm.
So the idea here is there's a grid around the element that you're able to place it in one of those those 9 blocks around the anchor, because most of the time that's what you want to do is put it around there. And yeah, if you check that show IMCB, uh, that is the inset modified containing block. And how, how this works under the hood is it actually, so similar to what you were talking about earlier with a absolute positioned box inside of a relative parent, that it moves around relative to that, or the absolute um, element moves around relative to the relative parent because it's containing block. It's like this is the 0 0 point is at the top left of that element. And so position area creates a new containing block based on the space around the anchor. And so
Mm.
and then it uses justify and align content to move the element. So instead of being centered within that containing block, it hugs the anchor.
And this is what I like about this is it helps demystify a little bit what's going on here. And because I think one of the things in CSS that can be a little tough to wrap your head around is that it feels like there are a lot of properties. There's a lot going on, there's a lot
Mhm.
that's happening, but when you start to peel back what they're doing, they are all the positioning ones at least, they're creating boxes and they're deciding which boxes are connected to which boxes,
Yeah.
right? And so when you set this, you're saying I want the bounding box of this thing, which is the square that goes
Mhm.
around our little guy. I want that to be the box that all of my other boxes are tied to. And then we're saying like, okay, now I want to center this position thing inside of this little box that I'm attaching to the top of this box, as opposed to, you know, what I was maybe thinking before was some kind of on the fly calculation to determine what the pixel values are. And like
Mhm.
all of that is true, but in the more abstract sense, we're saying this is your home. This is where
Yeah.
things live, is this box right here. Now, you're going to add another box somewhere around this box, and it can be attached in a lot of different ways. And you can see these all here, but all of them are just a box next to a box.
Yeah.
And once like that was one of the things in CSS that helped me so much, was understanding that if you just draw a square, this is why I always put borders on things. If you just draw the rectangle around whatever it is on the screen and start thinking of everything as boxes being relative to other boxes, and they're either next to or contained within other boxes, it starts to feel a little less daunting, because now it's like, well, if I can get the boxes to go in the places that they're supposed to be, then I can get rid of the borders and the illusion of roundness or stacking or whatever it is, all just kind of emerges from things being in the right place. But I don't have to, I'm not like trying to build this complex context of, here's all the stacked magic that makes CSS work. It's boxes within and next to other boxes, and that is the entirety of CSS, really, if we break it down.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I recently talked in an Oddbird stream with Tab Atkins-Bittner, and they were talking about how in some ways this exposes a lot of the things under the hood of CSS that don't always get exposed, but I think position area especially, but anchor positioning in general is going to expose, is like peeling back a little bit of behind the curtain of what you might need to understand some of these things. And yeah, I think it does get complex, but it's also really, really powerful. So it's worth learning. I don't think you don't need to. I think there's a line in the spec about these containing blocks, that they are rectangles, but they are not boxes, because a box in CSS is a specific thing, and this is not one of those things. So but you don't need to understand that nuance necessarily. You do need to understand, okay, I'm placing my position element somewhere around here. And one of the interesting parts, right? I think one of the clearest parts of that is, or the clearest ways that you see this play out is when you are using the position area, because you're modifying the containing block, any percentage values are calculated against that containing block. So, so if you have like, I want it to be 5%, the margin to be 5% or something like that, it's going to be not 5% of the gray area, it's going to be 5% of the width of that the checker box area. So it just, but that's probably what you want. It seems like that's more likely what you want. But for the most part, you're not going to need to think about that containing block behind what you're doing.
Got it. Yeah. Very, very cool stuff. And this is great work from Yuna, as always. What next? What should we learn next?
I shared a link with you with some default or some HTML markup. The first one. So this is the idea here is, well, anchor positioning will unlock a lot of new possibilities. So the goal here is we want to build kind of like a yearbook, high school yearbook layout, where you have a bunch of pictures on one side, and then their names all go down this side. So you might have 3 in a row or 4 in a row, and then 3 or 4 names in that row next to it. So here we just have I generated all of this content so that we don't have to do that anything in the HTML, I don't think. But yeah, it's just a series of list items that we that have content inside H2s and sources or images, and you can see inside of each list item you have an image and you have an H2, so they're right there next to each other. And our trick here is we're going to need to pull those names out of the flow, put them in a completely different area. So yeah, let's I guess is the end goal clear enough? Have I
So
described?
our end goal here is we want a grid of images and then a list of names
Yeah,
that appear to be two separate things on the page.
yeah,
Okay, I get it.
yeah. And the grid of images, so we'll want the names aligned or like in the same row as their image. If we pretend that each of these images is a different uh, picture of someone, but we want those names lined up. Um, and yeah, and but we also don't want them overlapping.
Got
Um,
it. Okay,
yeah.
I'm with you.
Okay. So the first thing we'll do is we'll do that photo grid. So you can either I would do this with on the UL, just doing uh, display flex and flex wrap. Yep. Um, and then we'll want to yep.
Is it margin or padding?
Uh, so yeah, I think
There we go. Okay.
yeah.
All right.
And then justify content space between just so that
Do you sing the Dave Matthews song whenever you set this property as well?
okay. Yeah. Nope.
Not allowed to fork.
Okay, I will make that public. I am sorry. Okay, you should be able to fork it now. Sorry
Okay,
about
let's see
that.
if it'll do it. It did it. Okay, good.
Wow.
Good.
Yeah, thank you, CodePen. They're great. So now this is now currently taking up 100% of the width. I think there's probably better ways of doing this, but we'll just set the the inline size to 70% of the screen. And then and then if you as you resize, that'll pop over things like that. And add one or more. You probably could see if you can zoom out zoom out on the HTML part, but not your text. I don't know. Anyways, we can play around with how best to show that. But then the first thing we want to do is we want to get those names over into that 30% left on the right side. So just pull those out of flow. So we can what we want to do is on that UL, we first need to say this is our anchor. We're going to refer to that UL as our anchor. Like we want to place the names relative to that box.
And that was anchor name, right?
Yes, anchor name. And
we can call it whatever we want.
Yep.
So I can call it yearbook.
Great, perfect. And then list items. On the list item, we will do actually, sorry, on the H2, the actual name, we'll do H2. On that, we'll do position absolute to pull it out of flow.
This should get chaotic. There it goes.
Yep, not too chaotic yet. And then we want to do left. And we're going to do this, 1M to the left of, or to the, yeah, one M to the right of the yearbook right. So we'll do calc and then anchor, and then refer to it. We'll have to refer to it by name because we didn't declare a position anchor. So before, we'll do dash yearbook. So that
you do it like that.
Do yearbook right. So we're
Yearbook
referring to the right side of it. Yeah.
I got it. Okay.
So
now we've got some chaos.
We got more chaos. Yeah. And the names are still below the row they should be in. Yeah. But that anchor function if you do declare a position anchor, that kind of sets the default for that element, where it'll say, this is the default thing where you want to grab onto. In this case, we're using a couple different anchors, or we're going to, so that's why we're going to be explicit about it.
Oh, I understand. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we now want to line up the top of the name with the top of its photo.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to you add a anchor. Let's see. We'll add an anchor name to the list item.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. So we'll do that first. So yeah, the list item will be. I mean, we could do it on the photo too, but I think the list item is probably easier. Yep, anchor name, and then we can do top, and we'll just do right on anchor photo or anchor image top. Yeah. And what happened? This is go all the way down to the bottom, and they're all right there.
Oh no, it smashed them all to the last one.
Yes, yeah. So because of how the DOM is here, we can have multiple. I mean, we have every list item has that anchor name,
Mm-hmm.
and so it just finds the last one, which is useful sometimes, but also very unuseful for this. So thinking back to JavaScript days, it's what you do is you throw an ID on everyone. You give every single list item a different ID or a different anchor name, and
Right.
chaos ensues. And let's not do that. Let's just
Yeah, that was what
not
I
do
was.
that.
So,
There,
do we get access to anything like a index or something like that?
it's even simpler.
Oh,
Um,
perfect. I like
yes,
simple.
what we can do is say, tell the anchor or the positioned element when you're looking for an anchor name, don't go outside of this part of the DOM tree. So on the list item, we can do anchor dash scope, and we give that the same name as the anchor name, so dash dash image, yeah. And this
Okay.
says, do not look
Oh, there we
outside of this
go.
area when you're looking for an anchor name. And we're
And things
closer.
are already happening.
Yeah.
So now we have the problem where because they are together in a
Mhm.
grid, the top is the same for both of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is where the things get even crazier. What we're going to do now is we're going to take that H2 and we're going to make it an anchor. We're going to give it the anchor name,
Okay.
dash dash
Okay.
name. Yep. And yep.
Anchor
And so now
scope again.
we don't want to scope here because
Right, because it's already scoped to the containing list item.
no. So if
Oh, now I'm fully
we're
lost.
the list item, the only thing that's scoped there is the image anchor name
Okay.
currently. If we could scope the H2 anchor name by adding doing anchor scope dash dash image comma dash dash name, and then it would scope both of them. But what we want to do, we don't want to scope it. We want the H2 to be referring to, or that anchor name to be referring to the last in the DOM before it, because it has to be a anchor before it. So So we want the second one to be referring to the one right before it. The third to be referring to the one before it.
Right.
Um, yeah. So what we can do is on your top declaration for the H2, instead of anchor image top, we'll keep that, but we'll do a max, or wrap that in a max. And we'll say the max of image top and anchor name bottom. And that's almost right. What is, I'm trying to think.
It looks like it bounces to the bottom here.
Yeah, there's Well, okay, so I'm
Did I
not quite sure what's going on with the first two names, why those are
did I screw
jumping
this
down.
up? What did I do wrong? Anchor image top, right? And then anchor name bottom. We got our name here.
Um, well, let's see, I'm not
But
entirely
the rest of these are
certain.
right.
Yeah. So I'm not quite sure what's happening with those two, but
Let me try something.
sure.
I'm just gonna save and refresh. Nope, didn't fix it.
No, it's worth a try. Yep. Command R is my most used thing here. But yeah, I'm just trying to see how that's different than what I have here. Um,
Yeah, did I do something?
I don't think so. Let's see. The only thing I can see on the list item call or add display flex, I don't think that's going to make a difference. I'm not. If it does, I'm not sure why. But um, it
That
works.
absolutely
Okay.
did it.
Okay.
Is
So
it is a list item well it would be block, right? So that
yeah.
shouldn't
Huh.
interesting.
I
There's
I'm
probably a very interesting reason on this, but I don't know what it is.
yeah. I also am curious to dive in and figure out what that is. But now we're tracking. Um, the and the cool thing here is why don't you make Bernie Loden's name extra long? Because this is always the fun part of you know, content always changes, something happens, and yeah, make that it just moves the next one down because we're calculating based on we're not doing some trying to guess on line height or something like that. We just are saying below the one above it. Um, and if you resize your screen so the three show up, um, it just
This
automatically works.
works.
Yeah.
Oh my god. This is the kind of stuff that if you told me to do this, I would just say no.
Yeah.
I would just be like, no, we're not doing it that way. We're
Yeah.
doing something else.
Yeah. And and this unlocks a bunch of fun things where like if you these are probably going to be links and you want to have shared hover state, so if you add a li hover
Oh my god, yes. Oh no. This is okay. I'm so excited right now.
and just outline 3 point solid red or whatever you want to whatever you want to do, and then add a
And
color
here we
as
go.
well for the text.
Look at it.
Yeah.
It's
And
beautiful. Like this is
yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
How hard would this be without using this particular API? Like there's it it would just be so challenging.
Yeah.
And this is wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. It's and it's fairly performant. I've had some issues with, if it's really, really big DOM. But yeah, I mean, actually, if you on the H2, the name, if you add a transition, let's do transition top 0.2 seconds. This is where it might hurt a little bit, but if you resize your view, so three pop in, it kind of like so you can see how they all kind of move up in response to the one above them moving.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I would highly recommend not doing this in production, but I mean, it's a helpful way of seeing kind of what's going on and how
Yeah.
they stack on the one above them.
Got it. And so some of this is like we're causing a huge amount of recalculation.
Yeah.
And with lots and lots of elements, this could be we
Yeah.
might end up regretting this quite a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And
Gotcha.
visually, it kind of hurts, especially if when you're down at the bottom. I mean, yeah, things are still animating. Yeah. So, yeah.
Oh yeah,
Um,
that's chaotic.
yeah. Um, but yeah, so that's the yearbook layout example. Um,
I can see this is one of those things where like somebody somebody who likes to abuse code as art is going to come up with a great way to make that glitchiness into something amazing.
yeah, yeah,
But yeah, so okay, so this is wonderful. I'm going to cut that part out.
yeah,
But this is, I mean, this is super cool. Like that, and that took us all of 20 minutes, maybe.
yeah,
Extremely cool.
yeah, yeah. Um, I was intrigued by your comment about the footnotes, that or the project you were working on with footnotes. I think the next example kind of goes along with that. I think that's a common uh, use case, or like people wanting to do side notes. And did I share the final, I think I shared the final beautiful one, not the.
You want me to just knock out the CSS?
Yeah, I think that would work.
Okay.
That should work. Okay.
You'll have to make it public again.
Yep. Okay. Try it now. Okay. So yeah, again, here what we're trying to do basically is uh, we're trying to use do a side note. Like we're saying, you're reading along, and this is not. You might throw it in a footnote, but you don't really want people to have to click something, go to the bottom of the page, and come back up and find their place. You kind of just want it off to the side. And so here, yeah, I have some paragraphs of lorem ipsum, and then we have some some asides. And apologies for getting you the one that has has a little bit of a cheat sheet in there. But I think here we have those items kind of co-located. So if you're using a screen reader or something, you're still getting this flow. That's an aside, so it's
Yeah, this
yeah,
is something that I kind of struggled with, right? Because I think the way that I implemented it was not great because I was trying to solve basically this problem, but I wanted it to be hidden. So I think I did something super inaccessible, which was I put it in a details element, which was
yeah,
wrong. Um,
yeah,
I shouldn't have done that. But
yeah,
so this is a little more logical. We've got the flow of the context, and then here as an aside is additional information. And if you
yeah,
turn off the styling, this doesn't look broken.
yeah,
Mine would have looked broken because this would be a details element
yeah,
that would then like completely blow out the flow. Whereas this is our aside, and this is the content that's being expanded upon.
yeah,
And like if you were reading a book, this is how that would be done.
yeah.
So okay, so I'm already pretty optimistic about this as a way to solve this problem. So what do we want to do next?
Yeah, so I think we'll just throw some styles on the sides, and anchors just so we can see what those are. So on the anchor, let's just and I think the asides are just plain aside elements.
Okay.
Yeah. So on that anchor, let's just give it a background color. Uh, Lavender or whatever happens to be your preferred color, something that you can see, we can pick out where those are more easily. And the aside, let's just background coral or whatever. And yeah, so we can really see that. That's a beautiful color. The Then we'll, just to make this a little bit easier to visualize, let's style the body by, let's see, or the article, I guess it would be the article itself. Let's do max height, max width, 70%.
You wanted both max height and max width?
Yeah. Let's do overflow auto and resize both. Let's just, I found resize to be useful to just kind of so that you can move things around and see how things react. I think we do
How
need
does that
to
work?
let's actually I think we need to contain the style of the body a little bit. If we and then you'll be able to see. So body, we'll do display grid, height, 100 VH, or sorry for using physical properties here, but yeah, and then place item center. And now we got it centered. Great. So then if you grab that little triangle down at the bottom, we can.
Now we can resize. Okay, yeah. I got it.
Yeah. So we're just positioning stuff around so that we can see the effect here. Then what we want to do is pull those asides out of the flow with position absolute.
Mm-hmm. Oh, right. I'm actually doing that now. Yeah. I was like, yeah, good idea.
Yep. So we're pulling those out. Yep. And then here I wasn't really finding a great way of scoping the anchors to the right, or the scoping the right side note to the right anchor, accounting for like what if there's multiple in a paragraph or something like that. So here we can, what I did already, I just added anchor name to each of the anchors. So
right.
one is Nisi,
and then down here there's another one. Yeah.
And then the aside, I'm setting that default anchor with the position anchor declaration. Yeah, there. So on there. So we're calling that. So that's how. So now they should be finding each other. Mm-hmm. Then, so what we want to do then is position the top of the aside. Yep. To anchor.
Wait. What do I just do this now?
Anchor top. You'll need
anchor top. That's right.
Or sorry, anchor, and then in parentheses.
Oh, right. Yeah, I'm with you.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. And it's we're not needing to specify which anchor because we're using the.
We've already done that, right?
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, we can do the top, and then we want to move those over to the side of the article, right?
Right.
Yeah. So so then we put an anchor or an anchor name on the article itself.
Okay, and that is going to be position
or
anchor.
Anchor name. Yeah.
Oh, anchor name.
Yeah.
Anchor name. Oh, right. I'm looking at the wrong thing.
Yeah. One helpful way that I've remembered is on the positioned element itself. That's where you put all the position declarations. So position, anchor, position area, everything that starts with position goes on the positioned element, and then on the anchor, it's anchor name.
Yep. Got it.
Yep.
Okay, and then now I was able to say position right, which gets us pushed over to the right. Took me a couple tries, but I got there.
But hey, I mean, still super fast.
Yeah, I mean, this is wonderful, and they're tied. So now we have this sort of feel of things coming through.
Yeah,
a little bit of chaos with the side notes staying visible as the rest of the content scrolls off. But
should we fix that?
Yeah, we should.
Okay. So on the aside, we'll just put a position dash visibility.
I'm sorry, what? Is this one of those little things that you're going to mention casually that's about to change my whole life?
Oh, probably. It's incredible. And then anchors dash visible. Anchors,
Oh, plural.
yeah. So here we're saying when the anchor is visible, show it.
Oh my goodness.
Yep. So it does have a little bit of a pop on, pop off feel where,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it just when the anchor disappears out of the scroll, poof, it disappears.
Mm-hmm.
But still, it's not just living on forever, way off your way out of your viewport. Um,
Right.
yeah, yeah,
And look, as I'm like throwing this around and changing things up, you can see how this is responding and continuing to work, and like the layout continues to make sense.
yeah,
That's huge for what? We're like all in, all styles, 25 lines of CSS. That's massively improved over the way that we would have had to do this prior to CSS anchoring
yep,
or anchor positioning.
yeah. And then maybe you want like a word count or something at the bottom.
Okay.
So, and I so I just saw a comment. Can you make it fade in or out, or is that not possible yet? That is not possible yet. I think that might be in a future level of anchor positioning where they figure out how to do that, but I don't think you can
And
animate.
that would be the sort of thing where like maybe we wanted a transition that would sort of act the
Yeah,
same way as like display block versus display none,
yeah,
where it would sort of like fade in and out based on its
yeah,
visibility.
yeah,
That would be nice. Yeah, because that would, it doesn't like solve the problem, but it makes it feel less janky.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it gets you close, but yeah, not fully there, I guess. Yeah.
And at the moment, that wouldn't be supported. Like we couldn't throw a transition on this and get
I
that.
don't think so. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I'm trying to remember if you can you animate between, I mean, I think it's probably just display none. So, or essentially, can you animate between display none and display block?
With logical properties, maybe, but
Yeah. Yeah.
um, it is not doing it here though.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
not in a way that is immediately apparent to me,
Yeah.
but that would be a nice feature.
Yeah. Um, Anyways, jumping back, if we want to add a word count to the bottom,
Mm-hmm.
so there's a border in there. Let's just pretend we have a word count. Throw in word count 250 words or whatever inside that div.
In the border. Okay,
Yeah,
got it.
in that border div. Yeah. So yeah, that's down off screen just based on how
Mm-hmm.
we have it. But if we wanted that to kind of stick to our element, and again, this element is not currently, it's not in this, it's not inside the article. It's not related necessarily to that article at all.
Mm-hmm.
It is that has that separation. But if we want to make it, let's give it a background color so we can see how big it is.
Make it yellow.
Great.
There it is.
And
It's just a little guy.
yeah, and it's off screen. It's not where we want it to be. So all we
Mm-hmm.
need to do, if we want it to relate to the article anchor. So if we give it a position, absolute, then position, anchor, article, we should be, right now it's pulled out of flow and in the center there. So if we do position area bottom, or yep, you can
Or
do block end, yeah.
block end, and then I can do like anchor end, right?
Yeah, I think anchor end is going to
Is this, am I doing this wrong?
block. Oh, it wouldn't be block.
I'm wrong. That's not what it is.
Yeah, it's not block end. What is the um, well,
We can just do
yeah,
bottom.
yeah,
Top, I guess it'd be in this case.
yeah. So we'd want top. So yeah, we anchor and works, and it's just stuck there.
Mm-hmm.
And including if you resize the article size itself, it sticks there. And then we can use anchor size as well to um, refer to that width.
All right, so we can do anchor size width.
Yep, and that'll
There it goes.
there it goes. And then of course you can. I mean, you could even do height. And actually, in that case, for the width, we wouldn't have to specify the width because if it knows to pull in the axis that it's referring to.
Oh, so you can just
By
leave it
default,
default and then it'll grab the right
yeah,
thing.
yeah. But if we want
Cool.
to refer to the other one, let's say height.
So we could do something really chaotic.
Yeah, yeah. So then if you, which is actually what I was going to do in the height, but yeah, you can do calc on that, whatever, and make it so it's 1em wider than the height of the div or whatever you want to do. It's just a very flexible tool for whatever you want to do there.
That's nice because that's another thing that a lot of times what I'll want is, for example, my like the figure to be a little bit wider than the body copy because
Yeah.
I want that to sort of like stand out a little bit, but I don't want my text to have to be wider, and just it's like nice typographically, and so being able to sort of specify that kind of stuff in the flow of things is really nice.
Yeah. And I like that it's super declarative. You can say, I want this to relate to this thing, or I want this to be 1em larger than this thing, and not have to think through, okay, so I have a variable, or that's based on a variable. And it's like my 2-column width or something like that. And then I have to add something to that. I can directly say, refer to this element and size based on that.
Yeah. And this is really powerful stuff. So we got about like maybe 10, 12 minutes left. Is there anything else you wanted to show, or do you want to start running through resources?
I'd say let's run through some resources.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And there was a good idea from Eric to try starting style. I don't actually know starting style well enough to try it fast, so let's leave that as an exercise for the viewer. And if you get it working, please tag us because that would be super cool. As a reminder, you can find James here. There's links to GitHub and Mastodon down there. You can find me on Blue Sky, wherever I'm around. You'll know where I am.
Okay.
And we let's see, James over at Oddbird. You need any help building this stuff for your company? Hit up Oddbird.
Yep.
Where else? What should people be looking for?
So yeah, Oddbird is a great resource for anchor positioning. I've been nerding out on this recently. So if you go to our posts, or search for anchor positioning, we have a bunch of different articles I've written. Here's how the debugging CSS anchor positioning, winging it, which is a show we did on anchor positioning with Atkins Bittner, and just a variety of things here. We also have a CSS anchor positioning is awesome repo where we're collecting the best of demos. I mean, there's some people who.
Where does one find that repo? Is it?
It is. Let me find that. It is Oddbird / anchor. Anchor positioning is awesome. Or awesome anchor positioning. That's right. I private chatted it to you since, right there. You got it. So this has some good resources for around anchor positioning. Una's tool or the anchor tool.com is a great resource. And another key point is this is currently in Chromium browsers, but we serve users who aren't just using Chromium browsers. And so there is a polyfill.
That's right. Yeah, I forgot that we didn't talk about this, but here is the polyfill in action.
Yep.
So that's nice
And
and easy.
yeah, so in theory, if you open this up in Firefox, it should work. This should import the anchor positioning polyfill and just put it into there. Yeah, so we have the polyfill there. It's under active development as much as we can. I'm currently working on implementing position area resources for that. If anyone wants to use this at their company and can find a way for their company to fund that, it would be incredible. I'm close to getting that over the finish line, and want that out there in the world because position area is really cool.
Mhm.
So yeah, you can definitely find out more about that there. And also, we have uh, um, yeah, if you are interested in digging more into it, we do offer like an office hours type of setup. I've really enjoyed doing this with some clients where people have said, I can't figure out what to do on this, or with your polyfill, with something else, or with design questions, anything like that. So we have I sent you a link in private chat as well, udbird.net/services/consulting, that lets you book some time with any of the birds for some coaching, for some, let's dive into your setup and figure out what is happening. We'd love to hear what problems you're having, and whether that's for an hour or if you want to book a longer session or something like that. We're open to helping you figure out how we can help you solve your problems.
Excellent. All right. Well, I think I'm super happy with that. And I love that we were able to get so much done. I love how approachable this is, and how it just sort of, I always wonder if whenever we get a new thing in CSS, is this the one that's going to break my brain? And today wasn't that day. So I'm feeling very happy about this. As a reminder to everybody, this episode, like every episode, has been live captioned, and I have apparently broken that website. That's neat. Let's go over to the Code TV website because that works. And here's the right show. So we've got a lot of good stuff coming up. We have had Maggie with us today from White Coat Captioning. Thank you, Maggie, for making this show more accessible. You can always find the captions at lwj.dev/captions. We've got more stuff coming up on Learn with Jason. Next week, we are going to dive into how to build a game engine using TypeScript. This is going to be really interesting. We're going to be learning from Will King, who is building a game engine in Gleam right now. And we're going to go through things like the game loop, the render loop, and all of the other interesting stuff that will go into building your own game if you wanted to do it the hard way and actually build the engine. We're also going to be learning about how to use LiveKit and Twilio to build a phone AI agent. I've never done anything like that before, so it'll be interesting to see how all those pieces work together. And we are actively scheduling more right now. If there's something you want to see on the show, make sure you leave a comment, make sure you like the video, subscribe, do all the things that let other people know that we exist and we're out here and we're having fun and we're learning. James, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. Is there anything else you want to say before we wrap this one up?
No, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, and yeah, make great things.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us. James, thank you for giving us some of your time today. We will see you all next time.